Alrighty, hello everybody. If you don't know my name already, my name is Tommy, and for my final for Music 11, I picked the String Quartet number 14 by Franz Schubert. So a couple facts about Schubert here, other than he is in a desperate need of a haircut and he's wearing some fancy glasses. He was born in January 1797 and he died in November 1828. And then just a brief overview of his life here. He was born in Vienna, Austria, which is kind of interesting. Unlike a lot of other composers during this time period, such as Mozart, Beethoven, and Haydn, he was the only one actually born in Vienna, Austria. His music reached a peak in 1814, 1815 in terms of how much music he was producing. He was about 17, 18 years old during this time, so that is pretty interesting. We see his health begins to decline in the early 1820s. He starts to enter periods of highs and lows in terms of his health. Then he ultimately dies in November of 1828 due to syphilis. At least that's what we believe he died of. At the end of the day, he's most known for his lieds, but he did compose for other works such as chamber music and masses. So I just wanted to take a moment here and break down the title of my piece. That's a string quartet, so we know there's going to be 4 stringed instruments, obviously. It is in minor, so we have an expectation of what it's going to sound like. It's given a spooky title, so that also adds to what it's possibly going to sound like. And then the IV at the end of the title there just means that it's going to be the 4th movement of the piece. If this was a string quartet composed in the classical period, we would expect this piece to have a faster tempo, and also it would be in rondo or sonata form. So these are all the time periods that we went over in the last number of weeks here. But with Schubert, we really just need to focus on this box right here. So he was born in 1797 and he died in 1828. So he's really on the verge of the classical and romantic periods, but at the end of the day, people most know him as a romantic composer. Alrighty, so a couple historical ideas about this piece. This piece is historically important in the life of Schubert because it was composed during the end of his life, and the question still remains, did he know he was dying when he wrote this piece? The title of the piece is Death in the Maiden, which is a fairly ominous title. If you were to ask me, did he know he was dying, I would say most definitely he did. And then a couple historical ideas about the musical time period. This is a very emotional piece. It's leaning towards program music, and it also relaxed the rules of composition, as noted by the sonata form that he uses. It doesn't perfectly match up to traditional classical sonata form, but I'll discuss that here in a little bit. Alrighty, so I'll let you guys listen to the 5-minute excerpt of the piece here. One thing that I did notice when I first listened to this piece, if you look at the players as they go throughout the piece, they actually look at each other to know when to stop and start. This is, of course, due to the fact that there is no conductor or anything, and I just thought that was interesting. sorry to stop it there, but the show must go on, I guess. Um, so the two guys on the left there were playing violins. The guy circled in red was playing a viola, which is a slightly bigger violin, you could say. And the guy in blue was playing a cello. So what we have here is a traditional string quartet setup. So as you were listening to that piece, you may have been able to tell that that piece generally represented sonata form. There was definitely a first theme, and there was definitely a second group of themes. And at the end of that 5-minute excerpt that we just listened to, we were about to get to the retransition here in the development. We were just short of it. But in general, this piece does follow sonata form fairly well. There's a couple parts that I got a little confused on. Like the first theme does appear in the development phase, which is kind of odd, and that really doesn't happen in traditional sonata form. But other than that, it generally followed sonata form pretty well. This is what I thought the first theme sounded like. And then after that, there was a second group of themes that sounded like. So in general, this piece does follow sonata form fairly well. So at the end of the day, the reason why I picked this piece, I first saw that it was composed by an interesting and short-lived composer just from my previous knowledge from the class. And then I listened to it and I thought, wow, this is some very talented playing. And it's also at very fast tempos. And then I stayed listening throughout the piece because of those sudden changes in key and dynamic range in that development section. And that's about it. Thanks for listening.